this episode is about how to sell and how to sell more travel, but more importantly, how to not sell sleazy. And I think that is such a big differentiator for people. For years, I've worked with travel advisors and talk about the fact that they need to sell, hence Art of Selling Travel podcast, because you got to sell. And the amount of travel advisors over the years that have told me, oh, I don't sell. I just plan vacations. It always makes me chuckle a little. I'm like, you can plan everything you want, but if you want a business, you're going to have to sell. And so when I got to see you speak in the Poconos last October, I think it was October, I absolutely loved your presentation. We had a great conversation afterwards. And right then and there, I knew we were going to get you on the show because of the way you talk about it and the way you put sales in there. And then lo and behold, as you said, that is G's whole philosophy. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, no, I would love to. And it's funny you say that because I run into, again, over the years, I've been in the industry 14 years, and I've noticed a lot of advisors are scared to say that they're in sales. And everyone is a salesperson naturally. It's just a matter of reframing it. And the way we like to focus on reframing selling is all about impact and outcomes. And where we actually learned and studied this was through a good colleague of ours, a good friend, a lady named Lisa McLeod. She wrote this book called Selling with Noble Purpose, and she partnered with G Adventures, and it really helped to reframe how we can really create an amazing sales experience on the front lines, especially shifting that narrative from being something that's more transactional to something that's more meaningful and impactful. And that's the difference between the sleazy salesperson and someone that is really selling with meaning and intent. So
Yeah, absolutely. I I just recall because you were on that stage for almost an hour. And I study sales for a living. That's what I do. I study sales and marketing, and obviously in the travel industry. And hands down, one of the best supplier presentations I think I've ever heard because there was so little. You need to buy this. Your clients need to do this. We have this many rooms. We have this. It wasn't. It was complete captivation of the story of what it is that G does and how it is that they work in the local communities and all of the ways that they have integrated themselves in there and really tapped into that local. And I found myself even having attended like I cringe to think how many supplier presentations over my career, and yet I was like, tell me more.
yeah. It's definitely something that we focus on a lot at G's because we want to make sure that, again, we're selling something that's meaningful and that's beyond just travel. It's transcending travel is something, and we want to make sure we're selling in the service of something bigger than the transaction. So the way we frame it is we want to look at to our presentations as, okay, who's better off as a result of this happening? For you going on a G Adventures experience, like what happens? And a lot of times, a lot of suppliers get trapped in this features and benefits habit of, oh, we have the best this, the best that, or it's all about amenities. And when we talk about travel as a whole, we've realized that travel was our industry was hitting a tipping point of where the destination and that exploration started becoming irrelevant, and it was more focused on feeling like you're at home and selling all these benefits and not really showcasing true meaning behind why this experience was needed in the first place. That's where we flipped the script and we said, okay, for all of our experiences, we want to show stories of locals that are impacted as a result of those travelers going to this place. And then on the other side, the travelers get a more meaningful experience as well. So we don't even talk about amenities or hotels or things like that. Yes, that is part of the process. And for me, I feel like that's the after sale. You go through all that information afterwards, not necessarily in the exploratory phase where you're consulting with a client. You really want to find out why they're traveling in the first place, what's special, but then also tie in the impact of the destination or the place that you're looking at. in your storytelling.
And I think that's so important, no matter what aspect or niche or whatever it is that you are in the industry. I think that understanding of the why they're traveling is so absolutely critical. So let's just, and I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
Yeah, I love
Let's
it.
say we have a client that comes in and they just kind of want that flop and drop or cruise or something very non G. How
Mhm.
would a travel advisor that's listening to this saying, that's great for all the adventure people, but how would I use that?
Yeah, no, of course. I would get down into finding out, okay, at this point, you're kind of just uncovering that the travelers are exhausted. They want to escape the mundane of just work and life. And you want to find out, okay, what's really the most important thing to them? And it might be that escape. It might be, hey, I just want to veg out on the beach and enjoy the sun and then just enjoy digging my toes into the sand. It's more so painting that picture for them, showcasing, yes, let me tell you about this last client I sent to the DR. We stayed at, this property here, and they sent me these amazing photos about, a dining experience that they had there, or an afternoon where it was one of the most beautiful sunsets that they've ever seen in their life. Those are the types of things that you want to throw out there. You don't necessarily have to throw specific amenities. It's more so talking about how they came, how they felt. I think the sales process is really focusing on how you make people feel, and that you want to create that connection early on. And that's when you're uncovering like what's most important to them. So that way, at the end of the day, the advisor that's selling this well is they're going to gain, they're going to help travelers gain meaning, connection, and perspective. And that's truly that builds that long-term relationship with that traveler for future trips.
I love that. Because it is when we have clients, when travel advisors have clients that come in and they're like, I just want to veg out, do nothing. There's still a story to be told in there. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of times it's those stories that are actually what it is that's going to sell the client and get them off of price, get them off of all of the other things that they've read on the internet or people have told them or everything else. Because the reason why Aunt Sue wanted to go somewhere is not necessarily the same reason why somebody else would want to go. And I also
Mhm.
think, too, those stories can get you past those misconceptions. Because even I said earlier, for somebody who's looking for, that's great for people who are looking for adventure. But then we start to use these blanketed terms in marketing. And when we have that story infusion, we kind of get rid of some of those blanketed terms and actually dig a little bit deeper. So, how did G fully like embrace this? What would be some of the examples of this selling with noble purpose? What is it that changed in the way it is that G does things?
Yeah, it really tied into, why we started in the beginning. So again, every company has to find their why, their purpose. And G Adventures for 35 years has been rooted in this purpose of, creating opportunity for people and then alleviating poverty. Those were two things that, Bruce really is adamant about when we define community tourism. We want to ensure that we're going to these destinations and creating opportunities for both not only the travelers, but also the people that reside in those communities, and using travel as that mechanism to create this transformational experience. So it's transformational for both parties. So we actually, when you bring this to a higher level, we said, okay, let's transcend travel. Imagine if travel didn't exist. What do we have as a company that no one else can take from us? And we realized that, we are the best at creating community. And that's really when we said, okay, this is the space that we own. But now let's take it further in the lens of, okay, this is more of a transactional or transformational economy that goes beyond travel because it's contributing to something much bigger. Now, yes, right now, travel is the outlet that's helping create this. But imagine we can transcend that to something else. So when we bring it into our selling we wanted to frame it into those stories and the impacts and saying, hey, this is a transformational experience. The communities that we partnered with, see where they started to now where they are now. They're thriving. It's a ripple effect. And we want to tell that story because then that connects with the travelers and they feel like they're part of something much bigger than themselves. And then we do that same lens with our travel advisor partners that are selling this. They feel, wow, I'm not just a travel agent. I'm not just selling trips. I'm part of something that's creating an impact and helping helping destinations that we so love thrive as a result of me sending travelers there. That's how we framed a lot of our sales work. So now in our presentations, we want to make sure that it's not about us being the hero. It's about everyone playing a part, an equal part, and a shared responsibility. So when we define community tourism, it's about everyone and it's a shared responsibility. And more importantly, it's community in action. It's creating this sense of, I want to be part of this. I want to help be part of this. And that's how we do it through our presentations with our storytelling and then presentations with both consumers and our advisor audiences.
I love that. So I had two thoughts that popped in. The first one was early on. One of the things that you had talked about was how you've, worked with the communities over in other destinations and other such. But also too, when we talk about the storytelling, there's one that sticks in my head, and I think it was India where you have the women drivers because
Yes.
of there's a comfort zone with that. I now see Uber is catching up to that and spreading that out across different destinations where you can specifically request. And this past
Mm-hmm.
week, when I was at a conference, somebody I was sitting with was saying that she was chatting with her driver and they have the option to only select female passengers, which I think is also, that's a really cool thing that they're doing behind the scenes. But just as there is that security question or that comfort or that's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily quote unquote a selling feature, yet it is, but it's done through story. And G has a beautiful story to that. But then the other thing you said here, and I wrote it down, is if travel didn't exist, what are you best at? And I think that is such a wildly powerful question for every travel advisor to ask themselves. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have a why to that or an answer to that, I'm going to say that's going to explain a whole lot of your messaging problems. It's going to explain a whole lot of your marketing and other such because nobody knows what makes you different.
Exactly. And we find, this is where we found a lot of companies, say the same thing. Yes, of course, we want to be the best adventure travel company. That's G. But, we're not the only ones doing that. We've realized that. And a lot of advisors, yes, I want to be the best luxury seller or best honeymoon specialist. Like, you got to find something that no one else can take from you. And that's really digging in a little bit deeper. And we've done a lot of business case studies. And my team, we've been fortunate enough to have a lot of access to leadership content through various partners like Lisa and other ones. But I think a lot of it stems from it was what's his name? Geez, now I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Oh man, Good to Great. Jim Collins, Good to Great. We and Built to Last. We built that concept. There's the hedgehog concept of like what you could be the best at in the world, what the economical driver is. And I'll even be vulnerable and share a story. My team did this exercise back in 2017. It was like my first entry as the national sales manager. Got to lead the team, and we came up with this statement. It's like, what's our hedgehog statement? What is it? And at that time, I think we established it's like we want to make adventure travel accessible to all of our travel advisor partners. And okay, that sounds like a pretty basic hedgehog statement. It wasn't really anything, exciting or just more so like, yeah. And then I realized, ew, it's kind of very just not, doesn't stand out.
Yep.
Any company, any adventure company could say that. So what I did was I redid this exercise this past summer with the team. And I read a book called Unsafe Thinking by Jonah Sachs. And that book had, it really highlighted areas of like, okay, where are you playing it safe? And that's where I kind of combined the hedgehog statement with this unsafe thinking. And I had my team do it again. And they started going down the travel rabbit hole. And I was like, okay, let's remove travel. Let's say we're selling stamps. What can we be the best at what do we have that no one else can take from us? And then that's when the team came up with the we are the best at creating community. And funny enough, I guess Bruce, our founder, did this session with just senior leadership a couple months prior. And the craziest thing is, we did the exact same statement without even knowing. So then I knew, okay, we're on the right path with this. And that's where as a company, it's like, this is really who we are. We are the best at creating community. And then that became the driver for all of our business actions that we do. And that's where you go into the flywheel concept, where you start adding in pieces of the business that you excel at and saying, this is a goal or a business. This is a pipeline. This is what we want to drive for. This is what we're looking for in the upcoming year. So I went on a little tangent there,
No,
but
that's all
yes.
good. Around here, we chase squirrels all the time. So anybody who listens to this show is like all here for the squirrel chase. So that's awesome. I am also writing down all these book titles. I'm like, oh, I got some time off coming up. We will be diving in. So as a travel advisor, and they're listening, sitting there thinking, how do I even start? What when we say to remove travel from the conversation, where do they start with that?
I think they start with, what gets them excited? What's
Mm.
the most exciting thing in their day? And looking into, like, I always ask fun questions too. We created this little deck, and this also ties back to noble purpose in our conversations with travel advisors. We ask things like, what's the last thing that made you smile? Little things like that, or just what's the last impactful thing that really struck you, or maybe a moment you had. And then saying, like, okay, how can I create that experience even more? So a lot of times it's just uncovering, like, what makes you tick, or what gives you that feeling of awe and inspiration and makes you feel fulfilled. Two things that really stand out for me. I always tell the team, especially when I'm hiring new people to G, is I want to focus on happiness and fulfillment. And you have to uncover, like, what that is for you. And a lot of times I think the easiest place to start is doing a core values exercise. You could probably just hop on Chat GPT and maybe, find a couple examples of where they can help walk you through it. But essentially, you can have a list of all of like 1,000 different words, and then just start picking ones that resonate with you and define them for yourself. And usually I'll have an exercise where I'll say, okay, yeah, let's go through this, pick 10 out of like 100. And then from there I go, okay, now if we can only act on one tomorrow, and let's just say it's resolved and that's the one you want, then you kind of really drill down to what is that number one core value for you. And then maybe you have some secondary ones. And the best part about this exercise is it's not defined because it changes over time. Your values change over
Mm-hmm.
time. So there's sort of like a core one that's leading the front, and then ones that are sort of still there, but they're not the priority at that moment. And having that exercise with yourself actually helps you find, okay, am I in the right place? Am I doing things that are aligned with that? And if you are, then you're going to find that's where your business starts thriving and you start feeling better about it as well. And this is a good exercise to use when you're hiring people as well, to match your values. So that way, your company, it represents that. And they know that your business decisions are based off those core values.
I love that. And I think I was actually having a conversation with a friend recently here because I've never met anybody who has like zoned into her values so deeply in a small business scenario. Um, she actually went away to the mountains for a week, and that is all she did. She worked on what are the values, what are her values, how does it intersect with her business, and she wrote down all the deal breakers too. So that's like right down to sponsorship. She has a
Mm-hmm.
very specific criteria for how she sponsors because it has to hit the values of what it is that she's doing. And it's shifted everything in the marketing. It shifted everything in her messaging because she does hire out her marketing. Um, but now she's given her person a very specific, clear boundary of what is within
Mhm.
our values, what is not, what do we want to talk about, what do we not, and all of these sorts of things. And she has such a giving spirit. So every decision she now makes runs through that crystal clear. And her team actually now has it to also look through. And anytime there is any degree of a conflict or something, she's able to say to them, here, let's have another read through this. How does that fit within there? But something you said, I want to just circle back to when you were going through and, what gets you excited? What's the last thing that made you smile? All of that. I recently went on a cruise, and it was the first time I had ever sailed that particular cruise line. And the word that kept coming back to me was fun, because everybody was having fun. They were at the social club all day and playing board games and doing all of these different sorts of things. I saw so few cell phones out. It blew my mind because
Mhm.
people were engaged with each other. And then from there, we went on to the Gen X cruise, which, oh my heavens, that was like being a teenager again. It was so much fun. And it actually made me realize while I was away, I haven't had fun in so many years. And I mean, like deep down, laugh till your sides hurt for days on end, completely free, fun. And when I came home, I started tearing my business apart to rework it so that it
Yeah.
is fun. And one of the number one things that I found is that in order to have fun, I need to have freedom. And in order to have freedom, I need to have more structure. And so my goal of having more fun in business is by putting more systems and processes in place, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but you have to have that in order to create the space for freedom. But the reason why I say that is because not everything is a direct line. Not everything is a word. I love the way you said, define what that means for you, because my definition of it is going to be different than other people's. But when you understand your own definition, it gives you the freedom, or gives you the ability to be able to draw it out, basically, to be able to create a plan for it. Now, one thing in here too, because I love that you said impactful thing, what makes you feel fulfilled and other such. I had this moment where I'm like, oh, I know there'll be a lot of travel advisors who listen that are going to think similar, but what will other people think? What I would love to, but what would people think? Do you have any suggestions for how to kind of get out of that lane of thinking?
Mhm. Okay. No, that's a good one. And I think it's always that you're your worst critic when it comes to that. And a lot of times we just got to create the environment and find the community. And sometimes there's that first follower that's going to help you. And that's what I realized is, there is a community out there that allows you, and we want to reinforce that in this industry more. uh, but what I would say is find people that you share values with, and then be vocal about it and connect. And obviously I would say a lot of times you think in your head that something is going to be very negative, or viewed like, oh, it's going to be so embarrassing. But I don't want to downplay it, but at the same time, in the greater scheme of things, it's a small little speck in this world. No one's really going to, I don't want to say they're not going to notice, but it's one of those, you're going to align with people that do notice, but then on the ones that just don't fit, and that's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly okay. There's going to be people that jive with you, that's fine, and then there's going to be people that don't. Now, as long as you're not doing stuff that's intending harm or being
Right.
malicious and things like that, obviously those are the basic, those are table stakes right there for being a solid person. But you can still act and be yourself, but you also have to create that environment for others and allow them to do that. And one of my, even during my hiring practices that I do, I always say, like, I don't want you to have to wear a mask during work and then wear the mask coming off.
Mm-hmm.
I tell everyone, you're the value add to this company. What you represent and embodies that. And that's when it comes down to core values. When you're hiring, or if you're speaking to others that share similar core values, you have to express that and share that and compliment them. It's just those little things that helps make people feel more comfortable. The first time, yes, it's going to be awkward and difficult, but eventually you'll just be like, oh, it's really not that bad, like at all.
Uh,
So,
I
and
love it.
I joke now. I even say with ones that maybe not agree with who I am, I'm like, that's okay. I've survived 35, 38 years without you. I'm okay. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And I joke and I say, I'm in my villain era. I'm done. I'm done caring what
Right.
other people think about that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And there is nothing more freeing than hitting that stage. Um, but I loved what you said. You're the value add. Whether you're working for somebody else or you're working for yourself, you are the ultimate value add. And in a world of AI and in a world of chatty and in a world of everything else, you still have to come through. You are the ultimate value add. And as you said, you're going to repel some. I got to be honest, there are some people I walk into a room, I meet them, and I'm like, I don't think we're a fit. And that's okay because I don't want to do business with them because there's that. But I can be in a conversation with somebody else and like, oh my goodness, they're amazing. That's perfect because they're the right person for them. And
mhm.
everybody has to find the right person. I don't have capacity to take on every client on the planet. It's not possible. So I need to have the ability to work with people I want to work with. And at the same time, for the people that I don't necessarily want to work with, or the people that don't want to work with me, that there's somebody else for them because
Yep.
we're not all the same. And so that value add factor is so important. So if we were to bring this kind of back around into sales, so much of what you just said, whether we are talking about marketing, we're talking about vocally expressing our values, things of that nature, or simply selling, it's so funny that it all comes down to we're our own worst critic. There's always going to be
Mhm.
somebody that doesn't like that. There's always going to be somebody that says no. There's always going to be, my heavens, life would be boring AF if we
Mhm.
only ever did things that other people approved of, because there's always going to be somebody who will tell us no. There's always going to be somebody who tells us stay in your own lane. I
Oh yeah.
actually, one of the epiphanies I had when I was on the second cruise in particular was I remembered a conversation I had with another agency owner when we were putting together a conference or like a retreat for a team. And I had this amazing idea. I thought it'd be so much fun. And I actually remember them saying, we can't have fun. They'll never respect us. And
Mm.
that I didn't realize how deeply it stuck with me. We're in a whole new era where we're going to f some stuff up and we're going to have
Oh
some
yeah.
fun. But it was so funny in the way that that story hit me because that's from more than a decade ago, and yet
Yeah.
somehow it was still inside of my DNA. And I was like, where did that come from? And so I love when you said to do the values list and to define what it means. Now, I'm also going to say this is possibly something you can't do in one sitting,
Mhm.
and that's
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Sit down, go through it, come back to it. If you're a journaler type person, go do some journaling on it. Write out, what does that mean? What does it bring up when you see some of these words? What does
Yeah.
it bring up? And again, for the journal factor, write it because you know nobody else is going to read it. There's times I write things and then I burn them because nobody can ever read what I wrote. Like shredding is not good enough. We are going to burn that afterwards.
Hmm.
But I get it out of me because it's almost like a poison that somebody else has put in there at some point, and we need to get it out because their stories aren't allowed to dictate my future. And I think so often in sales, it's not that we're scared of selling. It's not that we can't sell. It's what are other people going to say? What are other people going to think? What are other people going to, insert story here? But again, that's what I love about the way that G does it. They tell stories that captivate to bring you in. I remember from way back in my days when I was selling travel, I remember first hearing, I think it was Belize, where they have the kids that ride bikes, but the kids have to go to school in the morning before they're allowed to come ride bikes with the tours and other such. That to me is a story that connected so deeply. One, I love the fact that education was first. Two, that who gets more excited for your hometown than kids that get to go and tell you things? And three, they have jobs. It's not all kids nowadays in North America, but my kids sure wanted a job when they were by the time they were 12, they're like, where can I work? So to me, it gives them such a natural kid experience, but at the same time too, in all the best ways. And I so appreciated that about the way it is that G does it. And I would tell that story and people would lean in and they would want to know more. And it's not necessarily about quote unquote selling. It's telling the right stories in the right place that make people lean in and say, tell me more.
Definitely. I and we kind of already spoke about it. It was the Women with Wheels, which is our transfer service in India. It could be a simple, this is just a transfer service,
Mm-hmm.
but we tell the whole story behind like why this is the transfer service. And as a result, it's empowering women that are just underserved in
Yep.
India, creating opportunity for them to support their families. And there's also these little faucets of they get to practice their English with the travelers while they're in the car. They love that. And then when you look around, if you ever go to Delhi and you're driving around, I guarantee you they're going to be one of the few females that are actually driving because a lot of times uh, the woman stays in the house and supports the family, and then the husband is the one that's out doing the job. So we flipped the script on that and wanted to support this, and that's that story where now travelers that join us are like, wow, that's incredible. Like that's really special, and that's the I want to know more.
Yep.
That's another pure example. It's one of my favorite little excursions that we it's not even like an excursion, it's just a transfer from the
Yep.
airport to the hotel, but that's something that's really special that's integrated into our trips and shows our intent and
Mhm.
why we do what we do. So
And there's so many of those sorts of things. Like I said, I can't tell you when I first heard that Belize bike story, but it would have been a decade or more ago. And yet it sticks. Now, if you were to ask me such and such cruise line, how many staterooms do they have? I have no idea. I can't even tell you how many ships they have. But when you can have those specific stories that connect, that do have a higher purpose, that do have a solid why behind it, those become memorable. And I think the hardest thing in the travel industry right now is being memorable, especially as we all fled with AI and we're using AI for social media. We're using AI for this, we're using AI for that. We're no longer memorable because we're vanilla. We are all generic. And so when you can tap into your values, so you have a clear message that's going to connect with you at a different level. Your energy field shifts when things connect with you on a value level, as opposed to just regurgitating something. But also to people will just feel that. And it will make it easier when you know why you're saying something, when you know why you want to talk about something, when you feel a like pull from your gut, I got to talk about this. It's easier to create content. It's easier to have conversations with clients. It's easier to say, well, do you want to go experience that? So, just before we wrap up here, what's happening with G? What's new? What's going on?
yeah, no, we so you got to meet me in the Poconos, and I just came off the heels of GX Jordan. It was
Mm-hmm.
our annual summit that we have that celebrates community tourism, and just we had our largest gathering ever, over 700 people there from all over the world. Top travel advisor sellers are eligible to go and stuff, and we're doing that again, and we announced it's going to be in Morocco. So
Very
the
cool.
incentive is happening right now, and we're basically it's a top 20 from November to May. Our top sellers can earn a spot. So you can definitely, I definitely want you to be part of it because it is something that's really special that showcases the impact of community tourism. And you get to visit a lot of the projects and communities along the way. But something that's more, I know, probably on the selling side, you want to know like what's the cool stuff that's coming out. So I'm happy to share that it was at GX we announced we extended our partnership with National Geographic, inked another 10-year deal. And then on top of that, we are now taking over their signature collection. So now we will be in the luxury space and cover all of the National Geographic land product. So something that's really exciting that goes live mid-January. Trips for sale, and then travel window is in 27. So we're going to run. We're going to be operating their existing line this year in 26 coming up, but then we start our own G version of that in 27. So really exciting stuff there. And then on top of that, we have our annual G Normus kicking off come January. It's our 4-month incentive where we're offering bonus commissions, and I think the cash pool is 11 grand for the winner. So
Oh, wow.
lots of opportunities to win at G Normus. So
Awesome. I'm going to circle back to that luxury factor.
okay. Mm-hmm.
So travel advisors, G has a well established name, well known. Um, what does a luxury feel with G Adventures look like?
Yes, so that's a great question because I know everyone's like, gee, luxury? That just
Right.
doesn't
Almost like an
how do you
oxymoron.
stay? Yeah, it's like that doesn't really sound true to your, your
Yeah.
values and like community tourism. And that it took us a long time to get to that level.
Yeah.
We realize now that this new era of travelers, so think of the generational wealth that's going to be distributed
Mm-hmm.
to the millennials and the Gen Z travelers coming up, they are more intentional about experiences, and it's more about that moment and feeling like they're having an amazing experience. So we're talking luxury on the experiential side.
Okay.
Yes, we're still going to have pretty nice, sexy hotels, but the focus is not going to be on amenities like the traditional high touch amenity service of luxury. This is going to be more focused on that experiential side of luxury, more meaningful conversations. And yes, it's going to be upgraded experiences and more touch points, but not so much focused on amenities, which was the original definition of luxury back in the day.
Right.
So that's the new era of luxury, and we're really excited to jump into that and actually help write that as a new partner going into the space. And there's already a ton of incredible partners that are in that space right now doing that,
Yeah.
and we're excited to to play a part too. So
And that's great too. We are, I think, in an era where business owners, travel advisors, travel agency owners rewrite your own definitions, recreate what your business is, because there is a new generation. When I was on the Gen X tour or on the Gen X cruise, there was like 12 or 1300 of us. And the majority of them had a t-shirt that declared that they were Gen X every single day of the cruise.
nice.
And when I came up in the industry, it was all about the boomers, because the boomers, I cringe to think the boomers are at the age that Gen X is now, and I am a Gen X, and that just, there's a slight identity crisis in that moment, but there is another generation coming. And then what was the Gen X back then is the millennials coming up. And so it is changing. And I think it's so important as an industry that we are evolving constantly, because the generations are changing, the stories are changing, the connections are changing. And so, yeah, it's just so important to tap into who are you as a travel agency owner? Who are you as a travel advisor? If travel is your medium, but what do you want to create? What are you going to create using that medium? Um, and I love that now we have new ways of doing it. Over the years, I sold a lot of G. I had clients that adored G, But then they hit that point, they're like, I'm starting to age out a little. I want a little bit more of a comfortable bed at night and things like that. But at the same time, they still loved everything that G was. And so um, I would suggest to the travel advisor, odds are good, especially as this luxury line comes out. You absolutely have clients for that. Are you going to have the conversations with them? Are you going to have that connection with them and start telling them the stories? And so that's my invitation to all travel advisors. Tell more stories, connect with them, stop trying to directly sell to them. Stop saying, I just plan, actually sell, but have stories, have connection, build community. I think anytime you can build a community around your business is going to grow and thrive. Um, and kind of just to bookend that, we all have a fear of what people are going to say. We all have a fear of if somebody comes for us. The most beautiful element of community, when you build a business surrounded by community, you don't have to defend yourself. Your community will do that for you. And I think that is something that becomes a byproduct of just going deep with a community and building that community. So thank you so much, Jeremy. This was
Of
awesome.
course.
We're going to link up. You gave me like a link tree thing. We're going to put that in the show notes. So if they have questions, they can find you or simply to find all things G. And with that, happy selling.
Happy selling, everyone. Take care.